Mexico generously opened Texan lands to American settlers who, corrupted by their greed for land and precious metals that the land contained, ignored the 1824 Mexican Constitution, which they had sworn to obey, and took advantage of Mexico's internal problems to revolt. The Texans demanded legislation of their despicable practice of slavery, formed unauthorized governing bodies that collected taxes but did not return any of this revenue to the state, continually demanded more and more land, and insisted on rights granted only to sovereign nations. This bold infringement on the honor and property of Mexico could not be permitted. According to a circular distributed by the Minister of Relations, the colonists established in Texas have recently given the most unequivocal evidence of the extremity to which perfidy, ingratitude, and the restless spirit that animates them can go, since, forgetting what they owe to the supreme government of the nation, which so generously admitted them to its bosom, gave them fertile lands to cultivate, and allowed them all the means to live in comfort and abundance, they have risen against the same government, taking arms against it, while concealing their criminal purpose of dismembering the territory of the Republic. General Santa Anna, who had taken control of the government 3 years earlier, declared that he would strike in defense of the independence, honor, and rights of his nation. Fired with patriotism, he formed an army and gave this order: the foreigners who are making war on Mexican nation in violation of every rule of law are entitled to no considerations whatever, and in consequence no quarter is to be given them. The enemy took refuge in the Alamo when they saw the Mexican army approaching. After a 12-day siege, 4 columns of soldiers and reserves quietly positioned themselves on 4 sides of the fort in the pre-dawn darkness. They were thrust into battle by the ancient Spanish bugle call that signaled fire and death. The revolutionaries' barrage of cannon and rifle fire stopped the initial charge and killed valiant officers and soldiers who had won the honor of being among the first to attack. When a second attempt was likewise repulsed, Santa Anna ordered in the reserves. Soon the army surged over the north wall where wooden planking allowed it a foothold, and overran the defenders. As the Texans retreated to the barracks behind sandbag barriers and trenches, Mexican soldiers followed. Fierce fighting ensued, but the Americans fell quickly, especially when their cannon was turned against them. The wrath of the army abated only after all the foreigners were killed. The number of Mexicans lost in the battle was appalling, but they died for a just and honorable cause. Okay, this week's game is Alamo, 1836. It was published in 2011 by Vae Victis Games, designed by Frank Yigachayan. It was a magazine game, so it's a little bit sparse on rules and probably a little bit sparse on playtesting. So I've had to house rule it some, so it won't quite follow the rules as written. And I should point out, this is a solitaire game, but it's quite easy to change it into a 2-player game if you want to. Now, the interesting thing about this game is that it does involve a fairly extensive pre-game preliminary setup. You begin setting up the game with a bombardment of the Alamo. Now, this represents the 5 days that preceded the final assault by the Mexican army. It's composed of 5 rounds, and the first thing you need to do is place the 12 Texian guns in their designated locations. Now, you'll see a number 1 or 2 on the map, and that represents the number of guns that are placed in a particular zone. These areas on the map are just called zones. You then conduct the preliminary bombardment. The player rolls a 1d6 at the start of each bombardment round to determine which side of the Alamo the Mexicans will fire at. Now, all 3 of the batteries will fire at the same target during the same round. So you roll the dice, and if you get a 1 or 2, it's the west side, a 3 is the north side, a 4 or 5 is the east side, and a 6 is the south side. Now, once you've decided which side you're going to bombard, you then determine the target that you're going to fire at. Now, if it's a 1 to 3, it's an artillery piece, and if it's a 4 to 6, it's going to be a wall or a palisade section that's going to be attacked. You'll have several multiple targets on each side that you can attack, and what I would do is just randomly roll for those. So just use a 1 to 6 and assign the guns a number, and then just roll it and see which one you get, or with a wall section. So the Mexicans have a total of 3 batteries to start with. They roll a 1 to 6, and they have a +1 bonus for each battery that fires. In the normal rounds, they would have a +3 bonus. If they roll a 6 or a 7, then that artillery piece or the wall section are damaged. Now, the artillery piece is destroyed, and you remove the gun, or the wall is breached, and you place a breach marker on the section. The Texans then have a chance to have a counter battery fire against the Mexican artillery. So at the end of each bombardment round, the Texians can return fire with all the guns that they have facing the Mexican batteries. In other words, all the guns that are on the side that the Mexican battery is firing at. You roll a 1d6 for every 2 guns that fire. Lone cannon isn't effective. And on a roll of 6, a Mexican battery is neutralized for the next turn, so it can't fire the next round. Now, if a Mexican battery is neutralized in the final or the 5th bombardment round, it cannot participate in the final assault that occurs on March the 6th. So that's it for the pre-attack bombardment. Then you start to place your units. First, you place the Texians. Now, each Texian counter represents 10 infantry volunteers or a gun and a 5-man crew. And then it comes with the officers, Travis, Bowie, and Crockett. And you can place the Texian units in any zone, behind the compound walls, or in the Alamo's firing patterns. They cannot be placed or moved into an area that's exterior to the Alamo. Now, if you do place a unit in an enclosed building, then it can only fire through the doorways. The one exception to this is units that are on the platforms above the chapel, and they can fire at exterior targets within line of sight. The cannon placed in the chapel can also fire inside as well. After placing all these guys, you place Davy Crockett and William Travis, and you place those with an infantry unit, wherever you choose. However, James Bowie is placed in the little area that has his name on it, and he can't move from there. He can only fight from there. He was sick the day of the battle, and this is where he was stuck. Then Mexican troops are placed, and they're placed in columns. Now, the columns each have a leader. That would be Cos, Duke, Romero, Morales, and Santa Anna. So you take Cos, and he has an infantry battalion with 6 counters and a sapper, the Zapadores, which have a counter. Duke has 2 infantry battalions, the Tolucas and the Alendes, and each of those consists of 4 counters, and then a Zapadore. Romero has 2 infantry battalions, the Matamoros and the Jimenez, and then he has a Zapadores counter. Morales has the San Luis and the militia counters, which are each 6 counters, and then a Zapadores. And then you have the 3 artillery batteries, and then Santa Anna is over the cavalry regiments. That's the Dolores and the regulars, and each of those has 4 counters. The battalions with 4 counters are then divided into 2 groups of 2 units, and the battalions with 6 counters are divided into 2 groups of 3 units. This is to maintain stacking. The Zapadores are placed singly or in a group of 2 counters, and you place the batteries on the edge of the map that's indicated in the table that I will be showing you. So to place the Mexican units, you look at the assault column that's in the left column of the columns, and then you roll a d6, and that tells you which side they'll be coming in on. You then roll another d6 and then look at the edge of the map, and that'll tell you which area they're on. What I would do is place the leader in the area that you roll, and then place his subordinate units on each side, just like this. When you get down to the artilleries and reserves, you'll do 2 dice, and that'll tell you where to place them. So you would do it just like this. So the Texans begin the first turn after the preliminary bombardment ends, and all the counters have been placed. And each turn consists of the following phases. First of all, there's a Texian cannon fire, then there's a Texan infantry fire, and then the Texans move. This is followed by melee, with both sides fighting each other. We then move to the Mexican player, and they begin with their cannon fire. This is followed by rifle fire. This is followed by movement, and another melee occurs. Now, the battle has no set number of turns. It lasts until all of the Alamo defenders have been killed. Since fire is a huge part of the game, let's go through the procedures for it. Now, attackers need a clear line of sight to fire upon a defender. And units atop walls can fire on units outside of walls or in the plaza of the fort, and vice versa. And units can also shoot over palisades at units on the other side. Units, however, cannot shoot into or out of enclosed buildings except to and from the space adjacent to a door. In other words, they can just shoot from an outside of a door inside. Units cannot shoot from the exterior of the fort over an exterior wall and into the plaza, or vice versa. So they can shoot on top of walls, but they can't shoot over a wall. So with line of sight, it's not really well delineated in the rules, so I'm just going to say use good judgment for this. Now, units can fire over other units if they're firing upon units that are on the exterior walls of the Alamo, and they can do this from both the plaza and the exterior. The range of fire for infantry is 2 zones, but cannons have unlimited fire, with the exception that it has to be within line of sight. And the target of the fire attack is always the top counter of a stack of counters. Cavalry units can't fire. Now, every cannon attacks individually, so you roll 1d6 for each one, while all infantry counters attack as a single stack, so you roll 1d6 for each stack. You then apply modifiers, and fire modifiers include pluses for Texian officers stacked with a Texian unit, whether it's artillery or infantry. There's also a +1 for infantry firing into an adjacent area, a +2 for Texas cannon fire into an adjacent area, a +3 for the big 18-pound cannon firing into an adjacent area, a +1 fire for groups of 3 Mexican infantry units stacked in the same zone. Now, all these modifiers are cumulative. So once you've determined your modifiers, you roll a hit die. And if the target was in an open area, that's mostly bare terrain or in the plaza, you need a 4 or more to hit. Or if the target's undercover, so it's behind a palisade, on top of a wall, inside an enclosed building, or in ruins or rough terrain, you need a 6 or better to hit. Please note that a Texas counter is unprotected if fire comes from within the fort and the Texan unit is not inside a building. So in other words, if they're on top of walls and they're being shot at from the plaza, then you need a 4 to hit them. Now, an unmodified roll of 1 is always a miss, and an unmodified roll of a 6 is always a hit. Once you've determined that the unit has been hit, then you roll for damage. Damage to Texians and Mexicans is a little different. So the Texians, you roll a 1d6, and if you get a 1 or 2, it's no loss. And if it's a cannon firing on a wall, there'd be no effect on the wall. If it's a 3 to 6, you eliminate the counter. And if it's cannon fire on a wall, then a breach occurs. With Mexican units, you need to add some modifiers to your damage roll. Damage rolls are not only physical damage to the units, but also morale damage. So you add a minus for every morale bonus the Mexican officer that is stacked with the unit has. In other words, they preserve morale. You add a +2 if the unit has been hit by cannon fire. That's a +3 for the 18-pounder. You add a +1 if it's hit by 2 units firing together, and you add a +2 if it's hit by 3 units firing together. You add the modifiers up, you roll a d6, and you determine what happens. If the result is a 1, no loss occurs, and the counter continues to advance the next turn. If it's 2 to 5, there's no loss of the unit, but the counter has to retreat 1 area. And if it's a 6, the counter's removed from the game. Mexican soldiers always fire in priority at cannons, but if there's a Texian infantry unit closer to them, then they'll fire at that. A cannon counter whose crew's been eliminated is turned over, and if a Mexican counter enters that zone, then the Mexicans capture that cannon intact, and they can turn it against the Texians. Now, counters must retreat into the zone which they came from, and a counter that withdraws from the map must return to the zone from which it left. A unit that retreats may advance in the next movement phase, and if they can't retreat, then they're eliminated. So retreat's impossible under certain conditions. If there's 3 friendly counters behind them, if the adjacent zone has a wall in it, or if an enemy counter is in an adjacent zone. Now, the original rules had a fairly hard-to-track ammunition system. What I do is each time a Texian gun fires, you roll a 1d6. And if a 1 occurs, then that gun is out of ammunition and it cannot be fired again during the remainder of the game. Also note that the Texian guns can't fire on the Mexican guns, except during the preliminary bombardment. Now, the Mexican guns will usually be firing until the artillery is eliminated on one side and that there's a breach in the wall of the side they face. After that, you don't need to continue firing with them. Now, Texian guns located on the walls can be turned to face the plaza, but they can only fire into an adjacent zone, except for the center battery, which can fire at any position within the plaza on top of the walls of the fortress. Now, the big Texas cannon, the 18-pounder, is located in the map zone marked 18L, and it gives a +3 bonus to hit and a +3 bonus to damage. During the movement phase of a turn, the Texas player can choose to spike a gun. And on a result of 1 to 3 on a d6, they're successful of spiking the gun, and that gun is no longer operable in the game. Now, every turn when the Mexican artillery fires, you roll a d6 to determine which target you're going to shoot at. On a 1 to 2, you fire at any Texian artillery in line of sight, and if there's no artillery in line of sight, then you move to a 3 to 4 result. So a 3 to 4 result is you fire at any infantry present on the walls within line of sight that are facing your position. You can take 1 target per battery, And if no infantry are present on the walls, you move to a 5 to 6 result. A 5 to 6 result is fire on the fortress wall to open a breach. You roll a d6, and on a 5 or 6, the breach is created. Movement is printed on the counters, and Texian units may move 3 zones per turn, and they have a maximum stacking of 3. That does not count leaders. Texian cannons cannot move, but they may stack with one other infantry unit, and this doesn't count leaders. Mexican soldiers can move 1 zone per turn. If they're with a leader, 2 zones per turn, and they have a maximum stacking of 3, not counting leaders. Mexican cavalry may move 4 zones per turn, and they have a maximum stacking of 3, not counting leaders. Cavalry can move around the exterior and in the plaza, but they can only melee with units in the plaza or in adjacent areas on the walls or in buildings. Cavalry can only enter the Alamo through a wall breach. Now, officers can move 4 hexas, and they can freely stack with any other units. Units can freely move and melee from the plaza to the exterior walls. There's ladders set up along those, and vice versa. However, they cannot move or melee from the exterior of the Alamo to the tops of exterior walls without raising a ladder, and we'll talk about ladders in a little bit. In the plaza, chapel, and atop walls, units must stop when they enter an enemy-occupied area, obviously. Now, officers cannot be specifically targeted if they're stacked with an infantry or an artillery unit. If the infantry or artillery unit is eliminated, then you roll a d6, and on a 1, the officer dies. On a 2 to 6, the officer survives, and they either stay with any remaining infantry units or move to the closest infantry unit. If they're left alone in a zone, they're automatically eliminated in case they're directly attacked. Now, officer losses have no effect on the game. However, Santa Anna's special, and if he dies, the game ends immediately because the Mexican army routs and the Texians win the day. Shouldn't be a big deal, but the stream on the one side of the Alamo doesn't block movement, but cavalry units have to expend all their units to get across it, and the small lake is impassable. Now, since this is a solitaire game, you assume that the Mexican units will advance each turn in the direction of the fort walls, and if a breach in the wall or a ladder over their wall exists, they'll automatically move towards the closest breach or ladder and then try to pass through it. To emplace a ladder, you roll a d6 for each infantry unit in the stack, and on a roller 5 or 6, the ladder's placed. If the Texian player has units on the top of the wall where the ladder's in place, they can fight back, regardless of whether the emplacement of the ladder is successful or not. They roll for an attack, and they apply melee bonuses, and on a roll of 4 or better, the Texian player rolls for damage on the Mexican player. Ladders cannot be emplaced on the chapel area, nor against walls that have a ditch next to them. Once a ladder is successfully emplaced, a single Mexican unit can be placed on top of the wall every round, and Texian units can also stay in the same wall zone and melee with this unit. Ladders exist in that spot for the remainder of the game. Palisades can be climbed over during a movement phase. The units roll a 1d6, and with a 5 or better, they are able to jump over the palisade. Now, regardless of the success, Texian units on the other side of the palisade can attack units that are trying to climb over. They roll a 1d6, and they use melee modifiers, and with a 4 or greater, then they're able to hit. An officer can freely cross over palisades or climb a ladder if an infantry unit has managed to do so and is on the other side. Breaches are holes in the wall, and in addition to cannons, sappers, or zapadores, can use explosives to open breaches in the Alamo walls. So to do so, they must begin their fire phase adjacent to the wall and roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, the wall is breached. And the breach does not cause loss to the defenders on the other side of the wall, but they have to retreat into an adjacent zone to avoid the blast. A unit can initiate a melee if it enters a zone adjacent to an enemy counter. And this could be the chapel or within interior areas or across doorways within the plaza and atop walls. Melee does not occur when units are fighting from the exterior to the fortress walls or across palisades. When units melee, they must attack each other until one side or the other is eliminated. To determine the results of a melee, each side applies a melee modifier to a d6, and the side that gets the highest result is the winner. The loser then eliminates a unit, and in the event of a tie, the Texian unit has a chance to retreat if they can do so according to the retreat rules. If they choose not to, melee continues for another round. And if leaders are with units that are lost, you roll for a leader loss. Okay, each melee is conducted separately. Basically what you do is you roll 1d6 with modifiers to each stack that's involved, and the stack with the higher score wins, and the loser eliminates one unit. If a leader is with a stack of units that are destroyed, once all those units are eliminated, then the leader is eliminated. So melee modifiers include plus bonuses for leaders, +1 if 2 units are stacked together, +2 if 3 units are stacked together, +2 if it's a cavalry unit, and +2 if it's a cannon. And these modifiers are cumulative. Finally, Mexican units can be rallied. If all the counters of a battalion have been eliminated, then that battalion rallies off the map and returns. So you roll to see if those units can come back on the map just like they would have at the beginning of the game. The only thing different is that if a battalion contains 6 counters, it comes back reduced to 5 counters. If a battalion of 4 counters returns, it comes back with 3, and so on. There's no limit to the number of times a battery can return to the game, but each time it's 1 less counter. The game continues until all the Alamo defenders are dead. Therefore, the number of turns is unlimited. Now, once all the defenders are eliminated, then you calculate victory points. And for each eliminated Mexican unit, the Texan player gains 1 victory point. So if it's 0 to 2 points, it's an overwhelming Texian defeat. If it's 3 to 4 points, it's a draw. If it's a 5 to 6, it's victory for the Alamo's defenders. And if it's 7 or more points, then that's a crushing victory of mythic proportions for the Alamo defenders. So now we're ready to play the Alamo. Now I've gone ahead and taken my units and stuck them out over here by the Texians and the Mexicans. And if you don't have this on Vassal, go ahead and get that set up. I can wait.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all...
Okay, you should be set up, and I pulled out our artillery here, and I'm going to go through the 5 pre-attack artillery, or pre-battle artillery attacks. We'll go with day 1 here, and let's see, day 1, we need a roll to see which direction we're shooting from first, and we roll for a 5, and that's going to be the east side, and that's over here. I guess we have ESO is west and north. Okay. And then we're going to determine we shoot at 3. 1, 2, and 3 are artillery. We've got 3 pieces of artillery. I'll say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are going down on 6 here. And then we roll a 1 plus 2, 3, 4 for the 3 artillery pieces. That's not a 6 or 7, so there's no effect. We then roll to see if the Texians hit the artillery. They get a 1, so for the first cannon, they get a 1 for the second cannon, and they get a 5 for the third cannon. They needed a 6 to eliminate the cannon for the next round, so they're unable to do that. So there's first round. I'll just make a little mark here. Okay, second round. Which direction? 6. With the 6, we're coming from the south. And we're going to see, okay, a 5, we're going to try to blow a hole in the wall. There's really only one place we can blow the hole in the wall. And we roll a 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, we needed a 6 or 7, so that's unsuccessful. Texians will then fire back. They get a 2 and a 4. Neither of those are going to hit. Okay. So ends round 2. Okay, we go to round 3, and round 3 is a 5. A 5 is a bombard the east side. We're just moving around here. Okay, and we get a 2. We're going to go for the artillery pieces. And we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 for those 3 artillery pieces. So we get a 5. It's going to be this south one here. We roll 3, and we get a 1, 2, 3 total. I needed a 6, nothing. The Texians will then fire. A 6, okay, a 1 and a 4. So for the next round, this artillery piece is out of action. So we'll put it over its side. And that would end round 3. Okay. Go to round 4. A 5. What direction's a 5? East side. We're still on the east side. And with this time we only with plus 2. We get a 2. So we're going to aim for artillery. I'm going to try to determine which one. 1 or 2, 3 or 4, or 5 or 6. 6. Again, this south one. We roll a 4, 5, and 6. So 6 was enough to eliminate this guy. destroyed. Texians will fire back. They get a 6 and a 3. So again, we're out 1 artillery piece. Ends turn 4, and we are in turn 5. We get a 5, so again, we're on the east side. And let's see. We get a 1, so we're still firing at artillery. We get a 1, 1, 2, 3, and then a 4, 5, 6 for the south one. And we get a 3, 4, 5. Not enough. Texians will fire back with their 2 cannon. A 2 and a 2. Okay. So they miss. And that means that the artillery, the Mexican artillery, will get to, all 3 units will be able to fire in the combat. So let's determine which direction they're coming from. I got a 1. So a 1 indicates they are coming from the west side. So we will put them over here. Since their range is going to be infinite, they're going to be able to fire anywhere on this west side. Okay, that's all there is to the pre-battle bombardment. Let's go on to regular setup here. Now we're ready to place everybody, so we'll start with the Texicans. And I think we got to move the buoy goes here. And I think what I'll do is I'll put Travis down where he was during the real battle. And we'll just stick him down here with these. Actually, we'll stick him here on this corner. And then we'll move Crockett. Let's move him out to the enclosure. Actually, let's put him in the chapel. He'll be sitting up on top of the wall there with 2 Texan units. Let's put the regulars here, and then we'll put volunteers up on the wall here and here, and then some more down by Travis down here on the north side. Okay, so we've placed all those guys. Then we get to start to place all the Mexican units. Now, we use the little table here. And I'm going to start with Cause's units, and he's column 1, I think. Let's double check here. Column 1. Well, I guess so. We'll call him column 1. It's not going to make a huge difference. Let's start with Cause's column 1 and figure out where he's going to go. Roll a 5. Okay, so we roll a 5. Well, if I can find it here. Got a lot going on. Okay, column 1 is a 5, so he's on the west side. So we need to figure out which space. 6. So Cause will go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, up. I'm going the wrong way. Oh, come on, get up there. Okay, 6. There we go. Put him in charge of his column. And then we will move his other column and his Epadores here. Okay, Duke is a 1 and a 1. Okay, so 1 and 1 is, column 2 is north. So we'll put Duke over here, 1 and 1. There he is. The Tolucas. 3 and 4, and then we will put so I'm just going to spread them around that point. Then Romero is going to be a 5 and a 6, and let's see, column 3, 5 is west. And 6. Now that would stack him up on top of Cause's units, so we're just going to go ahead and put him down below here. I'll move him to the center, so that 3. Montemoros's units will go here, here, and here. And Jimenez. And some Zapadores. I think it's Morales next. Morales is a 3 and a 5. A 3 and a 5 east. Okay. And we will put him down here. Up where those guns are. San Luis, 1, 2, 3. We'll put him there. I'm going to try to, like I said, I'm trying to spread everybody out just a little bit. Some Zapadores. And then Santa Ana. Oh, and I forgot the guns too. Okay. Santa Ana, we roll a 4 and a 5. So artillery, 4 and a 5, so west. So Santa Ana will go on the west side. We'll put him down here since that's all that's left. And we'll put him with the cavalry. And Santa Ana never moves much closer, so cavalry's on their own. And they have to stop when they get to that stream. I think that's... Oh, I forgot the guns. The guns will get a 4 and a 3. 4 and a 3 south. Okay. And we'll put them just right in the middle. Okay, there we go. We've got the setup. We're finally ready to start playing. Okay, we're ready to start the game. We start with the Texian fire phase from the cannons. And I'm going to go ahead and use this cannon against this stack with General Koss against it. We roll a 3. I need a 4 to hit. I don't think any modifiers are going to help me here. Nope, it's not going to help us. So that's a miss. Then this one here will go against Romero. And we get a 6. So that does hit this stack. Now we're going to see if we do damage. And to see if we do damage, we are going to take a... subtract the morale of the Mexican officer and add 2 since it was from a cannon. So the Mexican officer has a +1 and a minus, or it's actually going to come out to be a -1. So it's going to be +2 -1 or a +1. And we roll a 4. That gives us a 5. Okay, and a 5 is no loss, and a counter must retreat 1 area immediately. So we're going to move this guy off the board. He can come in on the next turn. Travis doesn't have a cannon here. Okay, we've got a cannon here on the north side. We roll it, and we get a 6, so that is a hit. And we roll a 4, but we got a +1, so that's a 5. And that's, again, going to send a unit backwards. Actually, these guys would be here. Yeah. I'm going to keep them on there. That's okay. Okay, on the east side, this cannon will go against Morales. And we get a 6, so that's another hit. And this time we get a 2. Now, a 2 would actually be a 3... say 2 plus 2 is 4, so yeah, it's a 3 because of a -1 for Morales adding morale. Morales morale, okay. And a 2 is no loss. So again, we have a, this guy's knocked off the board. Okay. Crockett is going to fire, we're going to fire against Duke. We're going to try to hit those officers if we can. Now we've got 2 cannons here, and we get a +2 for Crockett being with them. So we have a +3 for each shot, -1 for Duke, so that's a +2. We get a 5+2 and a 4-5. Again, sending him backwards. The other cannon will shoot and 1, so that's not going to do anything. Okay. Did we fire? Yeah, we fired with that one. Okay. Up on the north side, we can't fire on the... we can't fire on those cannons up there. We can fire... Yep, that's going to be in range of sight from this guy. So 2 more on Dukes. First one on Duke gets a 2. That's not going to be enough. And a 6. That is enough. And we roll a 1, 2. That's not going to... Well, that's going to send a unit back. So we are thinning the ranks out a little bit. Okay. Adama. We've got one last shot, and we get a 5. Is that that's enough? Oh yeah, we needed a 4 better. And we get a 5 plus 1 is a 6. So we actually have a casualty. So we hit destroyed. And that is the end of the fire phase for the cannons. Now we're going to work our way around with the fire phase from the infantry. They can shoot 2 areas. So these regulars here can shoot twice. And when we do this, we will roll... we get a +1 if 2 units are firing together. So we do have that. So these 2 are firing together, so they get a +1. And that is enough. A 4 and a 1, and then a 3, 4. Okay, the Zappadores are knocked back. Okay, Travis. So we have a +1 for Travis and a +1 for the Tennesseans. So we got a +2 and a 4, 5, 6. They hit Santa Anna's men. And we're going to go against the topmost of the guys here. And we get a 4. And that's enough to knock him back 1. So, okay, the volunteers are going to go. We're going to try to shoot up. We can't shoot Santa Ana. We can't shoot anybody because they're more than a space away. Okay, these Texans, yeah, they can squeak one through. I'm going to say they're going to be able to fire. So they get a +1 and a 4, 5. They hit. And they get a 5, which is enough to knock San Luis back. These guys can't, up top, can't fire on anybody, and these guys can't fire on anybody. So, okay, that's it for the Texian fire phase. Okay, we go to the Alamo Defender movement, and I don't think I see anybody that needs to move at this point, so we'll go ahead and go to the next phase. We are now at the melee phase, and no one is in touch with each other. So then we go to Mexican cannon fire, and there are 3 cannons. So we will roll a for the cannons, we got to decide whether to fire at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. We got to first of all determine what we're firing at. We get a 3, so a 3 comes out to be a 3 to 4. Fired infantry present on the walls within line of sight, facing their position. 1 target per battery. If no infantry, move to 5 or 6. So we're gonna fire at these guys here. We'll just take it at random. A 4, but they get a 5, 6, 7. That's going to be enough to hit. And then we determine if they do hit and fire. Our 1 to 6. So 1 to 2 is no loss, and a 3 to 6 eliminates the counter. So a 4. So these volunteers, the first set of volunteers is destroyed. Okay, so they were blasted off. Okay, that is it for the Mexican cannon fire phase. Next phase is going to be the Mexican rifle fire phase. And Cos and his movement. Jimenez, yep, I guess he can fire on these guys. So we have 3. And they get a, let's see, are there 3 units there? So yeah, there are. So they get a +2. And they have a +2 to hit because there's 3 units firing together. And let's see, anything else? Oh, no, +1 fire from a group of 3 Mexican infantry units stacked in the same zone. So they only get a +1. But they get a +2 on their damage. Okay. Since these guys are up on top of the wall, they need a 6 to hit them. So they need to roll a 5 or better. They do not. So they miss. Okay, 1, 2. These guys will... They get a +1 for being with Romero. Needing a 6. Nope. Okay, these 3 guys here get a +1. 3 don't get anything. The cavalry cannot fire. Okay, San Luis, we're going to try to take out Crockett. And a 1, so they don't. Actually, they would try to take out those guys. Okay, the Zapadores gets a 1. And that is it for the Mexican fire phase. Okay, we move to the Mexican movement phase. And we are going to try to move everybody in. Oh, there's a breach there. Derp. Okay. And I don't remember if I tried to see... I was going to say a 1 in 6, the Texians would be able to fix the breach. Nope, they don't fix the breach. So, okay. Well, that works well. Okay, these guys have to... They can only go 1 past it, so... They will stop there. Zapadores. These guys will move. They will move. Let's see. Oh, he's with an officer. So they can move more than... They can move 2. 1, 2. And the stream doesn't slow them down. Okay. 2, 1. I think everybody's moved. Oh, these guys get to move on to the board again. Okay, that's it for the movement. Melee. We can't melee because everybody's down on the ground. But he will be able to move through that breach here in a second. Okay, we go to... That is the end of turn 1. Now, turn 2 should be the longest turn in the game. One thing about this, as the time runs out for the Texians, the turns get shorter and shorter. So we can go ahead and we again start with the artillery phase. And we're going to have some advantages this time on artillery. Because if I look up here, the artillery are firing into adjacent areas. And there's this +3 is that 18-pound cannon, which is this one right here. So we'll start with that one. And he fires with a 6, so he blasts these guys right down below him. And looking at damage, we're going to get a +3. And then we're going to take off that morale bonus. So... a +2 against Casas guys, so 5, 6, 7. That's enough to do damage. And so we take one guy off here and destroy him. Now, since Kaz was with him, we roll... Oh, a 1. Okay, so that blast took Kaz out. So he is now been destroyed also. And we then move to this guy. Again, he's firing down below, so he gets a +2. But we have a -1. Let's double check. I can't keep these straight. Damage modifiers are +2. So +2, -1. Oh no, okay, that's for the... Yeah, that's morale bonus. Okay. +2 and needs a 4 better. 2, 3, 4. They hit. Do they hit? That's a fire modifier. Yeah, +2 cannon into adjacent area. So yeah, that is a +2 to hit. So they do get a hit. And we roll for damage. And we get a 5, 7. That's enough to knock a Montemoros guy out. We roll to see if an officer takes a hit. And we get a 5. So yeah, Romero makes it. Okay, and then we're going to shoot down at Dolores. Now, they're not in an adjacent area. They get a 2, so that's going to be a miss. They needed a, wait, 2 plus, hold on. 2, it's not adjacent now. Okay. Okay, this one will be another against Morales. We roll a 5. That's enough to hit these guys. And they get a 1. So that's actually going to come out to be a 2. It's going to knock them back. Cannon fire. I'm going to shoot 1 at the Zapadore stack. Well, I got to do both. Okay, so +2, let's see. Yeah, they get a +2. Actually, I'm going to shoot at both. San Luis guys are going to take 1 shot, and at these guys, these Zapadores is going to take a shot. So let's start with the San Luis guys. We get a +2 to hit, +4 to hit, and that's a 4, 8. That's enough. And we get a 5, 6, 7. That's enough to destroy one of the San Luis guys. Okay, the Zapadores got hit, and they get a 3, 4, 5. That's enough to knock them back. I don't know if that knocks them all back or 1. I think it actually just knocks 1 unit back. So we're going to knock 1 unit back there. And did I knock 3? No, I did not knock 3 back there. I'm going to knock 1 unit back here. I don't remember in the rules whether you're knocking them all back or just 1. So I'm just going to go with the 1. Okay. We go around for rifle fire. These guys can fire here. And let's see. 2 units firing together. That's for damage. So nothing. Okay, they just need to get a 4 or better. They do. They get a 6 and they get a 1. So does that do any extra damage? 2 units fire together. So +1, +2. So yeah, that sends one guy back. Okay. These guys will fire down at Jimenez. Let's see, we get a 5, so they do hit. We roll a 5, and that gives us a 6, so enough to do damage, and a 4 sends a guy backwards. Finally, Travis is going to fight down on these guys here. He gets a +1. 4, that's enough to hit. And then he gets a 4, 5, 6, enough to do damage. No, the 6 does damage, takes a guy out, so the Texians are actually doing really well in this game, so at this turn. Okay, we go to movement. I'm going to split these guys up, and he's going to move 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move this guy. And those guys will move here. 1, 2, 3. These guys are going to get ready to melee, and so they're going to be able to melee across the breach here now. Okay. Next is the melee. So we've got one unit that can melee across the breach, and we are going to determine how this goes. So I pull these aside. And melee occurs simultaneously. So the Texians will get a +1 for having 2 units stacked together. The Mexicans will get the bonus for their Mexican officer. And so they get a +1. So each side gets a +1. And we go with the Texians get a 1. The Mexicans get a 5. So this Texian unit is destroyed. Okay, we got to go into another round. So this time the Mexicans will get a 1. Texians will get a 0. Mexicans get a 4. They get a 6. So this destroys this guy. And that would destroy Romero. Okay. Okay, the guns will go for the Mexicans. And we're going to fire. So it's going to go either artillery, infantry, or wall. And we get a 5. So that's going to be wall. They're going to try to breach the wall. If we get a 5 or 6, the wall is breached. They got a 6, so yeah, they breached the wall. So we'll just put a hole right there. Okay, then the rifles get to go. And we do these each separately. Let's see, 1, 2. So these guys can fire up. These Aldamas can fire up here. And a 5 is going to be enough. Now they needed a 6 to hit, so because these guys are on a wall, so they're under some cover. Up here we've got a 1, so nothing there. The Zapadores will go 1. Jimenez will go 2, and this Jimenez will go 1. Matamoros will fire right through that breach and gets a 1. Now that would have been a 4 they would have needed. Jimenez will try to shoot up at a 3. Nothing. Can't do much with these guys here. San Luis, I'm going to say they can fire over this little wall here at the Texians. 6, so they do hit. And they hit with a 3. That's not enough to do any damage. These guys are going to shoot up. The Zapadores can't really shoot up. Nobody can shoot up there, so Crockett's still safe. He's going to make his last stand. Okay. We move to movement. And Jimenez will move. They can move their 1 down to the breach. And these guys can move 1 down to the breach. To the breach. Okay, movement, 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 movement. Okay, Duke is going to make it here, and I'm going to say they can try to breach that wall there. Everybody moved. Everybody has moved now. Okay. The Jimenez will try to go through the breach. And they're going to try to... We're going to do another round of melee. And what modifier do they get? 3 units stacked together. They get a +2. Okay, so we'll say the Mexicans get a 7, 8, and the volunteers get a 5. So this eliminates the volunteers, and the Mexicans are now in the plaza of the fort. So now, if they fire on the walls from the inside, they only need a 4 to hit the Texians, since the Texians are no longer under the cover of the walls. Okay, I think that's it for the... oh, we've got to see if anybody can... I did jump the gun here. See 5 or 6 to get some ladders put on, so... 5 or 6, nope. Nope. We can't put ladders up on the chapel. They can try to hop the wall here. They hop the wall. Okay. He's not going to need to put up a ladder. These guys can try. Nope. Okay. So did anybody... so these guys were able to jump the wall, and then ladders were here. So now then, since they jumped the wall here, these are now captured and captured. Now the one thing I forgot to do is on cannons, I forgot to check for ammunition loss. So I'm just going to go around and check for the Texians. If they get a 1, it's out. So they are out of ammo. And we'll check down here. We should have done that earlier. This guy's out of ammo. And that's it, I think. Okay, 1 here. Oh, he's out of ammo. So that would have changed things just a little bit, but that's okay. We are now up against turn 3. Okay, going into the 3rd round, we're going to use our Texian artillery, and let's see the Aldamas. Let's try to get this guy right outside here. So we get a 2, 3, 4, 5. That's enough to hit. And a 6, so that's going to destroy him. And then I'm going to roll to see if that's the big old 3-pounder. It's a 1, so they run out of ammunition. Okay, they're out of ammo, they're out of ammo. Here, this one gets a 2, 3, 4, enough to hit, and a 6. My gosh. Destroyed, and Morales is destroyed. And, okay. Crockett is going to fire here with his 2. We get a 5 and a 4, both enough. A 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, a 5 would be... it's going to send this guy backwards. And then the other one would be a 2, 3, 4, 5. It's send him backwards also, so... these are captured. Now they could use these. Duke couldn't use these against the volunteers here. So I think I'll let him do that. These guys are up on a roof. I'm going to say they can fire. And they get a 5. I'm going to say they're undercover though. So it's not enough. Okay. These regulars here can fire a 3. That's not enough. This regulars here can... I don't think they're going to be able... that's going to be in line of sight. I think the Zapadores, well, 1, 2, they're not going to be able to hit anybody. Travis's units, they're going to fire down. So they get a... let's double check my math here. Fire modifiers, +2 from adjacent area, so they get a +1. They're in an adjacent area, so they get a +1, +2 for Travis. 6, they are able to hit, and they get a 3. Let's see, our damage. Three, 4, 5. Okay, that's going to send 1 unit outside. Okay, then they're going to try to fight these guys off he will try to fight these guys off. Oh, we've still got this cannon here. Can he fire? I'm going to say he's going to fire. He gets a 4, so that's going to be, I'm going to say it's a 6 they need, so I'm going to say no. Then these guys are going to move. Oh, I didn't do these Texians here. They do hit. Miss. Okay, now then, we can move our guys. I'm a little bit out of sync here. He will attempt to fight. And these guys will attempt to fight. And those guys will attempt to fight. Those guys will attempt to fight. The key is to take as many with you as you can. Okay, so we're going to go with the Duke's guys over here. And they get a +1. This is melees. The melees are officers, 2 ticks. Okay. Now I'm going to give him a +2 since he's going to use those canister rounds. So Duke is going to use the canister rounds, so he gets a +1 and a +2 is a +3 against the Tennesseans. So Duke goes with a 6. Oh yeah, impossible. So this, they're not Tennesseans, they're just volunteers. Okay, so Duke and his men pull through here. Over here, Aldama against the 2 volunteers. Aldama gets a 5. The volunteers get a 5. We'll roll again. Gets a 4 to a 2, so volunteer is gone. Aldama goes again, gets a 6 to the volunteers 1, so these volunteers are destroyed. And then finally down here, Matamoros and Jimenez against Travis and his guys. Are going to get a +2, +3. Wait, +3 or +2? 3 units are stacked together, +2. Okay, so +2, +3 for the Texians. So they get a 5 and an 8. And the other guys get a +1, a 4. So, and then we do it again. Texians get a +3, a 5, and the Mexicans get a 2, 3. So these Mexicans will be gone. So these guys are back on the breach under Travis. And I think that is it. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we really don't need to worry about the Mexican artillery because we've eliminated anything to shoot at. We've got a breach, and we've pretty much either captured or destroyed the munitions. Oh, I didn't roll for this guy. Oh, he's out of ammunition. Okay, out of ammo. So the Texians really just have these 3 guns left. Okay, let's see. So now it's time for the Mexicans to shoot and move. Okay, so we've got these 2 shooting up on the wall. They need a 6, and then we need a 6, and these guys do hit. Get a 4, so that's enough to destroy this unit. These guys could shoot through. Yeah, I'll say they need a 6, but they get a 4, so they miss. Okay, and then we've got 2, a 4, a 1, and that's it. Okay. Okay, everybody's gone there. Oh, and these guys can shoot up at the top of the 3. Nope. Okay. We now then can move around. So oh, I forgot. These guys can shoot. He can use his cannons to shoot the chapel area, which he will do with a +1, +2, 5. Okay. So with the 5, that's a 6. We're going to see what damage Crockett takes. And the fire damage to Crockett, we need if it's a 3 to 6, then Crockett is eliminated. 2, nope, Crockett is not eliminated. Okay. And then we can do movements. He will move up here to Crockett, and he will move to Aldama. These guys will attempt to jump the wall at 5. They are able to jump it, but the Texians will get to melee back once. Actually, they get to fire once. A 3, which is not going to be enough. Okay. And actually, they don't jump the wall. They've got a ladder. Put a ladder there. Zapdoris move, and then these guys are going to move in. One, and one. Okay, we will say that Bowie is eliminated in a melee. Crockett will be eliminated in a melee. These will be captured since and then we're going to melee here. And we're going to melee down here. This could be it for the Texians. So we have 3. Let's start down here. We have +2, +3 on a melee for the Texians. And the cavalry get a +2. So +3, +2. We'll just make it +1 for the Texians. They get a 3, 4, and the Mexicans get a 3. So we lose a Mexican unit. We try it again. 3, 4, 5, and a 3. Oh my gosh. And then finally a 1 for the Texians, or it's going to come out to be a 2 and a 3. So that's it for this guy. Okay. They now have Texians have a +1. Oh, to a. Let's see. Hold on a sec. Let's check it. 2 units is a +1, +2. Travis gets a +2 to the Texian 0. So Travis gets a 4. Texians get a 2, or Mexicans get a 4. Okay, they fought off the whole group of Mexicans. Over here on the little enclosure, they're going to have a the Mexicans will have a +2 to a +1. Okay, so Mexicans get a 3. The Texians get a 4. Okay, Mexicans still get a +2. They get a 6, 8, and a 6, 7. So, and now we have a +2 to 0. So Mexicans get a 3, and the Texians get a 3. The Mexicans get a 5, 6, 7. The Texians get a 3. So that eliminates that final Texian unit. Okay. And that's the turn. Okay. Texians. The only thing they can really do is fight here. I will say they can they fire? They don't have any cannons left. We'll let them fire. They get a +1 to fire. 4. And I'm going to say they need a 6 since it's their breach, so they don't make it. I suppose they could run, but there's nowhere really to run. At that point, the Mexicans will try to... can they move? Can they fire? They could fire through. Let's go ahead and give them a fire through. 2, nope. Okay, Mexicans will move in. And Travis and his men are 1, 2, and 1, 2. Travis and his men are making a brave final stand here. And so they get a +1 and 2. They get a +3. Is that right? Yes. Okay. They get a +3 to the Mexicans' +2. Travis and his men get a 1, 2, 3, 4 to 3. Okay, a +3 to a +1. 7 to a 2. Oh my gosh. And a 3, 4 to 6. Okay, that's going to be a final delete, and we roll to see if Travis does. Okay, Travis makes it. The Travis will then, he's got a +1, and the Mexicans have a 0, so Travis gets a 3, 4, the Mexicans get a 6, and that is going to be the game because they destroy that last one, and Travis dies right there in the plaza. And that leaves the, pretty much everything's over. I don't think there's any, there's a couple cannons left, but there's no Texian units. Then we figure out how many are in the graveyard. And it's easily, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 Mexican units were killed. And when we look at the victory conditions, let's go through here. 7 or more points. Crushing victory of mythic proportions for the Alamo defenders. You can obviously tell this was done by a very pro-Texan one, so we'll say that Santa Anna did pay a pretty heavy toll to take the Alamo. Overall, this game's okay. I don't think this is probably the greatest game, but it's certainly serviceable and does a fair job of showing the Alamo. I'd probably change the victory conditions up a little more, and I've noticed that the Mexicans have a pretty hard time achieving any victory in this, so change that up a little bit. But that's what I've got. Next week, I'll be doing another Texas Revolution battle, and then in the next month, I will start doing some Napoleonics. So appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.